Well, hello, everybody. How's everybody doing this afternoon? You going to awake? If you're not awake, get some candy. All right. I want to thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. This isn't a very hot topic or anything. It's a dry subject, but we're going to cover it, and if you have questions, if we have time afterwards, we'll answer them, and if not, meet me out in the hall. So we're talking about implementing a unit print test environment and why you might do that. We're going to go too many slides. It's the problem with not planning ahead. So you would use this for testing. You could build another environment in your parallel to your production environment to test the components or the entire system if you need to for testing or troubleshooting, even using it to the extent of testing with a new license key when you get that. It's highly recommended that if you have the opportunity, make sure that it installs and has the right features that you're looking for before you put it in your production environment. You can prepare for an upgrade, use that for testing for preparation and all the planning that you need to do for an upgrade, and disaster recovery testing, which we're going to be talking about a little bit more tomorrow about disaster recovery. But using your disaster recovery or testing your disaster recovery features through a test environment here keeps it from having to interfere with your production environment. Testing implementation of customizations or changes. You get a new script, you need to make changes to your script, test it there before you put it in your production environment. And another one that comes up a lot of times is staff training, being able to train your staff so that they are familiar with the features. It comes up a lot in the public library environment where you have the need to train people on the nerve center and how that interacts in a closed environment. And I've had some customers who have set up an entire separate system to house the long-term storage of reporting. So they'll frequently will replace their existing production system with a new completely separate system, and they don't want to bring over all the baggage and transactions and so forth from the old system. So they'll set up a simple server that contains those transactions so they can continue to run reporting from that. So that is those are the types of test environments that I've run into. I've broken this down into 4 different possibilities here. One is a full replication of your production system. So if you have a principal server, separate database server, SQL server, a couple of print servers, and a mobile print server, you'd want to replicate that environment entirely in that model. Another model would be a mini model. Actually, I'm diving too deep here. So, like I said, full replication would be like I said, server for server replacement for it. Frequently is used when you need to keep a copy of your database in another system, a complete replication including a copy of the database. And the same number of servers are necessary. Could use the copy of the production, but keep in mind that when you do that, you need to make sure that be aware of a couple of concerns there. One, that you want to make sure that you name the server or rename the servers in the server table for your production system or to your test system so they are not the same. You don't need them cross-talking. And if you have some intercommunication between multifunction devices, you don't want those finding their way back to the test system, so be very careful about communication there. A mini model is a similar situation here where you may have just a portion of it. Maybe you have one principal server and one print server, but not multiple print servers. This is good for testing specific items, keeping it online at all times for training purposes or testing, but it doesn't have to be a full replication. You may be able to get the database to work in that location, in that instance, but you need to be very careful about the configuration there. Again, make sure that they are either completely isolated from one another or that they are named so they don't conflict anymore. They do need to be separated. An as-needed environment might be brought up on just for the needs of the purpose of the test that you're trying to run. Maybe you're trying to test a new script and you need to bring up just a client and a server communication so that you can do just the testing for that. You may need to prepare for an upgrade, so you're going to build an entire system and run through all the testing that you need to do for an upgrade prior to bringing that production system online, or perhaps even migrate that into your production system, but that's rare. And then finally is the subsection of test environment run into this from time to time where you have to have this is within your production environment but separated. So if you have a print release station or two or a multifunction device or two that behave differently, that stay in a separate location but use the infrastructure that is existing on your existing production environment, you need to test just those changes in that location. Where this really comes up into play is in the public library environment, where they need to set up a test branch within the production system, but it is its own location that is separate on that. So make sure that if you do that, that they are not they won't interfere with anything that anyone else is doing in the test branch environment. As I mentioned before, you may need to name that with a Z or something so that it falls to the bottom of the list and doesn't interfere with what people see there. But that is a very common thing, that you take you've got a separate test environment, you've run through your series of testing, but you need to make sure that it works in your production environment before making a wholesale change. Could be as simple as making a separate bank and testing that on a separate print release station or multifunction device. It is a good idea to do a small-scale test before you put that into full production. So if you're going to use a full-size, full replication of your system, you're going to want to get a backup of your database. Make sure you know where that is. In most installations, when we do the installation, it produces an automatic backup of the system in the first place. So every time that it is run, it runs a backup every night at 1 a.m. Make sure you know where that's stored. If it's not running on your environment, find out why and get it working. Or if you're using an external backup system, make sure you keep a copy of your backup. That's going to come in tomorrow's conversation as well. Again, be sure to edit the servers table that we were talking about earlier so that you do not bring that system online with the same server names as the production system. And you can detach and reattach the database if that's your preference, as opposed to doing a backup or store. There are reasons for doing that, but be aware that when you do that, you need to do that during a downtime. You need to bring the system offline, detach the database, break yourself a copy, and reattach it separately. So, again, not best for the environments with a number of servers that don't match the production environment. Small scale might be an option there. In addition to having servers, which we talk a lot about, we also need to make sure that you have separate items to test with, maybe clients, separate accounts, even if it's an email account for your mobile print system, email server, separate everything you're trying to do. If you're doing a real honest-to-goodness test, make sure that it is a fully won't interfere with your production system. It's very key to understand that. So separate copiers, printers, Faro stations. Maybe you just bring a few things in off the production system and put it into a room for a little while you're doing your testing. I've done that many times. And then we put those things back into place when we're finished. Client computers, all this is great for testing and training other folks. A word about licensing here, because this does come up. People say, well, how can I bring up another system with the license key that I have? We do encourage that, and we do allow for that. Be aware that the licensing is typically either a site license or it is by number of printers and copiers that you have. Obviously, bringing up a separate system can bring you over that license limit. The systems do not talk to one another, so there is potential for concern there, of course, but just you're on the honor system to some extent there, and we need to make sure that those two systems do not interfere with one another and aren't breaking your overall license agreement. We do want to make sure that you understand that we encourage this. We want people to set up test environments. We want people to work through their problems and understand how to implement changes prior to bringing the new systems, the production system back online. So we do encourage this. So, short presentation, don't have a lot to it, but feel free to fire away if any questions or concerns you have. Yes?
If we're going to be doing an upgrade, you mentioned fortification more possibly as needed.
Yes.
Circumstances as needed?
Circumstance as needed frequently comes up when someone says, we're having a problem with a specific thing, or we're trying to make a change to a script, for instance. You don't want to, sometimes you can test your changes in scripts in the production environment, but sometimes you can't. You need to set up a separate server. It may not even be a full-on high-end server. It may be very, very minimal for the needs that need to be tested. So it might be a single server that contains all the components and a client to test that interaction. But that would be an as-needed. And you're finished with it, you throw it away, and you don't get back into it anymore. That's an as-needed.
We would not use that for an upgrade copy. That's not possible.
To
If we want to upgrade to another server, produce, and have a test or development server before we go to production, we're better off with a full replication.
No, not necessarily. I mean, if you plan to have your production system is going to have 5 print servers, you don't necessarily need to set up 5 print servers. But if your production system is going to have an external SQL database server and a principal server and a print server, you might want to get those components together, or at least the principal server with the database on it. Whatever you're really concerned about is what you really want to replicate in your test environment there. But if it is testing how you're going to upgrade your clients, how you're going to upgrade your multifunction devices and things like that, you don't necessarily need to build a full replication for that purpose.
By a show of hands, how many people in here have test environments set up today?
Excellent.
Also, by a show of hands, how many people have test environments set up today that you guys get to test out? Beta might not be the right word, but new releases of Vero's product. Are you guys are doing that now, testing new releases? Okay, great. I know one of the things we talked about last year and some feedback that we got, a lot of our demo policies, we gave you 30 days, and Kevin and I spent some time talking about it after, and I think what we heard from most customers is they'd really like to be able to test some of the new products that are coming out for a semester. So certainly if there's those opportunities that arise and there's new things that come out that you guys need some more time in testing, please make us aware of it. But we are always looking for people to test new software versions. Lindsay's not here right now, but there might be a way in the community to kind of alert us to that if you're interested in testing out the latest versions of new software that comes out. Maybe we can create something in the community for that, so it'd be a lot easier for us to find people to test the software with. That'd be helpful. Any other questions for Jeff?
Yes, sir.
You said to edit the server's table was no big deal.
I did say it that way, yes.
I had to do that once. I'm just saying I had to do that once, and where is it documented?
It is not well documented. It is assumed in that case that you understand how to, I'm sorry, he mentioned how to edit the servers table, and that you would know how to do that within SQL Server. If it is not within your realm of understanding, please contact our support folks for help with that, because it is not a simple or minuscule concern. It's not a very difficult thing, but if you don't know your way around it, it can be daunting, and if you could break something very important. So, but again, it's your test environment, so not too much there. But we do not have a document on how to edit the SQL tables.
So maybe Frank from support could take a note on that?
I had to find it before I could change it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
No, and I understand, and I.
Intelligently named, and I thank you.
Some things are, some things are not, if you've delved into the database. But
Thank you.
yes, it's a good thing to. I specifically said it the way I did because I know that if you know what I'm talking about, you're in, and if you're not, you should be concerned, because please contact us. We'll be happy to help you with that. But it is not a minuscule task, but it is an important one. Good?
Thanks, Steve.
So I'm trying to get our stuff up from Uniprint 8 to 9, and then MobilePrint 1.32 to 2.0. Right now they're on 2 separate VMs. Is that the best way to do that, or can they just be on one virtual machine? And I also have to upgrade this Microsoft server software. It's like 2008, and then the SQL server is like 2005, so they're pretty old.
Mm-hmm.
So
So you're asking if you could get all of that on one server in a test environment?
test and production, is that recommended? To put it all on one or
well,
separate them?
it is recommended that you keep in most cases, that you keep your mobile print server separate from your Uniprint
Uniprint.
server, mostly because of load, primarily because of the nature of a mobile print server when it's under load is that it's trying to render jobs and it uses a lot of CPU time to do that. And if you're expecting a high load, if you have a large environment, you're going to want one or more mobile print servers. If you're just putting it in a test environment, yes, you can put it all on the same server. Yes, it will function on the same server. But you do miss some of the components, the interaction between the two servers and the way they've got to configure and communicate. It may be better to have it on separate servers in that instance for testing. But yes, you could put it on one. I do not recommend it for production systems except in very light environments. I'm talking 10 or fewer printers.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate your time.